Have you ever felt a quiet, lingering sense, a subtle but persistent feeling that you might be letting your life quietly slip away? As if something deep within your soul is whispering, "This life doesn't quite belong to me." You wake up, you put the mask back on, you work, you create, you complete. You check off every box on a list of expectations, most of which weren't even yours to begin with. But none of it truly reaches the part of you that's still quietly aching, longing for something nameless, a silent yearning to simply feel alive. There's a stillness beneath all the noise, a dull, persistent ache that doesn't go away, no matter how busy you stay, no matter how many people surround you. It remains, like something inside is gently trying to remind you. It's not quite sadness, not in the way people usually define it. It's not exactly fear either, not something you can name, fix, or rationalize. It's quieter than that, softer, but somehow more sacred. It's your soul tapping gently on the walls you built long ago. The walls of logic, of responsibility, of "I'm fine." It doesn't shout, it only whispers. "Please listen. Please remember I'm still here." Not with your mind, but with the deepest part of your presence. But the world never taught you how to listen to yourself. It only taught you how to function, how to keep moving, how to fit in, how to please, and above all, how to silence the very feeling trying to wake you up from your sleep. Carl Jung believed that the things we try to escape, the numbness, the restlessness, the quiet ache, they are not problems to eliminate. They are invitations. Invitations to go within, to return to yourself. So what if the emptiness you feel inside isn't proof you're lost, but the first quiet moment in which you are finally being found? You wake up, you move through the day, you do everything you're supposed to. Maybe you even smile. Maybe people say you're doing great. But somewhere in the quiet, maybe between the meetings, the errands, the scrolls, you feel it. This strange, quiet emptiness. Not sharp enough to scream. Not strong enough to stop you. Just there. A dull, low ache that no one sees, like you're watching your life through glass. Present but not alive. Busy but not connected. And you wonder, what is this? You tell yourself it's just stress, maybe anxiety, maybe burnout. You try to fix it the way you've been taught. You distract yourself, you push harder, you make another list. But the ache lingers. Because deep down, this isn't about exhaustion. It's about disconnection. From yourself, from your soul. And the more you ignore it, the heavier it becomes. Not because you're broken, but because you've been living someone else's life. Following a script that never felt like yours. That quiet ache, it's not a flaw, it's a signal, a message wrapped in discomfort. Your soul is trying to speak, and it's saying, "Wake up, you're not really here." And maybe now, you've started to feel it more. That pressure in your chest that comes out of nowhere. That strange fatigue no amount of sleep can touch. That quiet voice whispering, "This isn't right." Even when everything seems okay. You're not imagining it. You're not overreacting. You're not weak. What you're feeling is your soul trying to speak. Carl Jung didn't believe emotional pain was some malfunction to be erased. He believed it was sacred, a language of the unconscious. A signal from the deepest part of you that something essential is out of place. Neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. In other words, you're not sick because you're broken. You're hurting because you're avoiding the truth. And the truth is this: you've built a life that your soul cannot breathe in. That ache you carry isn't random. It's not meaningless. It's a message. It's your inner world crying out, "This life is not mine." And until you stop numbing it, until you stop running, it will keep knocking. Not to punish you, but to awaken you, to bring you back to yourself. But instead of listening, We turn it off. We label it, diagnose it, and we reach for the fastest fix. A pill for the morning, another for the night, something to keep us going, something to keep the world from noticing that we're falling apart. And in a way, it works. We smile again, we answer emails, we show up on time, we keep moving. But inside, the silence grows colder, because what we call healing is often just suppression. We don't heal the wound. We bury it under productivity. We bury it under performance, and we call that progress. But Jung warned us, treating symptoms without understanding the soul only deepens the wound. Because healing is not about looking fine. It's not about numbing the ache so you can keep functioning. It's about honoring the ache, asking what it's trying to tell you. The system doesn't want that. It doesn't want self-awareness. It wants obedience. It wants you to function, to keep producing, to smile on cue. Even when your soul is quietly bleeding beneath the surface. And so we adapt, we survive, we pretend, but somewhere along the way we forget how to feel. And that forgetting, that numbness, is not peace. It's a quiet kind of dying. We live in a world that is deeply uncomfortable with pain. Not just your pain, any pain. It wants it hidden, muted, covered up with something shiny. Feeling lost? Here's a productivity hack. Feeling broken? Just shift your mindset. Feeling empty? There's a course, a supplement, a quick fix. Anything but silence, anything but stillness, anything but the truth. We are surrounded by slogans that promise transformation, but sell distraction. We scroll past curated perfection. We click, we consume, we keep going. And beneath it all, we ache. Because in this culture, pain is treated like a flaw. Discomfort is treated like a disease. But Carl Jung saw through that illusion. He knew pain is not the enemy. Pain is a threshold, a teacher, a sacred doorway into something deeper. But we've been taught to fear it, to label it, to medicate it, to pathologize the very thing that could set us free. And so we stay on the surface, smiling, achieving, slowly forgetting that depth was ever an option. Because if we truly sat with our suffering, we might begin to grow. We might begin to see. We might begin to wake up. And in a world built on distraction, awakening is a dangerous thing. What if the problem isn't you? What if it's the world that shaped you? You were never really taught how to live. You were taught how to follow, how to blend in, how to measure your worth in achievements, in praise, in output. You were raised to perform, not to feel, to obey, not to awaken, to be successful, not to be whole. So when your soul starts to ache, when your body breaks down or your spirit goes numb, they call it a disorder. They say you need fixing. But maybe it's not dysfunction. Maybe it's resistance. Maybe it's the most honest part of you still trying to survive, still trying to speak, still remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Carl Jung didn't see modern suffering as random. He saw it as structural, a predictable consequence of a culture that glorifies efficiency and forgets the soul. You act the part. You say the right things. You smile when expected, nod when appropriate, perform on cue. And maybe for a while it works. You blend in. You function. People admire the version of you they see. But deep down, something begins to slip. Because the more you hide your truth, the louder your unconscious becomes. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rage, it whispers. In sleepless nights, in moments of stillness you can't stand, in a sadness you can't explain. You feel like you're watching your own life through a window, close enough to touch, but never quite inside it. You check every box, and still the emptiness stays. You've done everything right, but it doesn't feel like you. That's not failure, that's a fracture, a quiet breaking apart. Because the role you play, the one that keeps everyone comfortable, no longer fits the soul you've silenced. You're living as a version of yourself, acceptable, polished, edited, but not whole, not real. And that disconnection, it will keep growing until you remember, you weren't born to wear a mask. You were born to be free. There comes a point where pretending is no longer sustainable, where the cracks in the mask grow too wide to hold, where the ache inside refuses to be silenced. And at that threshold begins the journey Carl Jung called individuation. This isn't about self-improvement. It's not about becoming more likable, more productive, or more successful. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about finding yourself. The self that's been waiting quietly beneath the layers. Individuation is not a straight path. It's not a checklist. It's a descent into the depths of everything you've avoided. Your fears, your wounds, your contradictions, your shadow, the parts of you were taught to hide. And yet, this descent is sacred, because only by facing what you've buried can you begin to reclaim what you've lost. Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. This is the awakening Jung spoke of, a slow, courageous unraveling of false identities and a return to the core of who you are. Not the version shaped by fear, not the one molded by others, but the truthful you, the raw you, the whole you. Individuation is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been before survival taught you to forget. And in that remembering, you don't just heal, you come alive. We say we're tired, but it's not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. It's the tired that comes from waking up every day and pouring yourself into things that don't speak to who you really are. We're not burned out because we're too busy. We're burned out because we're too disconnected from purpose, from presence, from ourselves. You don't need more dopamine. You don't need a louder alarm or a better habit tracker. What you need is direction. What you need is meaning. Carl Jung saw it clearly, that at the root of so much modern suffering is not weakness or failure, but the absence of a why, a reason, a center, a life aligned not with what's expected of you, but with what's true in you. Because when your soul has no place in your life, you begin to fade, quietly, slowly. You keep going, yes, but it's not really you who's living. But when you return to your truth, when you live from the inside out, even the pain begins to shift. Suffering, when connected to purpose, becomes sacred. It refines you instead of breaking you. This is the crisis we face now, not a crisis of exhaustion, but a crisis of meaning. A silent epidemic of souls doing too much of what doesn't matter and far too little of what actually does. But you can change that. You can stop. You can ask the question no one taught you to ask. What is my life really for? And in the answer, you'll find your way home. There's a part of you you've been avoiding, not because you're weak, but because you were never taught how to face it. The unconscious. It's not your enemy. It's not something dark and dangerous to fear. It's a mirror, a map, a vast hidden world filled with everything you've ever pushed away. Your instincts, your buried pain, your suppressed desires, your silenced truths. What you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate, Carl Jung. We think we're making choices. We think we're in control. But how often do we find ourselves in the same patterns, the same heartbreaks, the same fears dressed in different clothes? You think you're unlucky, but what if you're just repeating what you haven't yet healed? What if your life is being shaped not by your present, but by the parts of you you've never dared to look at? The unconscious doesn't scream. It speaks in dreams, in triggers, in the people you're drawn to, in the situations you sabotage, in the tightness in your chest when nothing's wrong on the outside, but everything's unsettled within. And here's the truth. As long as you avoid it, it will rule you. Quietly, relentlessly, unseen, but deeply felt. But the moment you choose to listen, not fix, not control, just listen, you begin to reclaim something sacred. Your power. Not the kind of power that dominates the world, but the kind that allows you to finally understand yourself. To see the patterns, to hold the wounds, to stop reacting and start awakening. Your unconscious is not a threat, it's a compass. It's the part of you still waiting to be known, not to destroy you, but to make you whole. So if the path is here, if the truth is whispering, if the soul is calling, why don't we follow it? Why do we keep hiding? Because awakening doesn't come without cost. And the truth, real, soul-shaking truth, terrifies us. To become real, you have to let go of everything fake. The roles, the masks, the comfort of fitting in, the illusion of safety. You have to walk away from what's familiar, even if it once saved you. You have to face the pain you've buried. You have to walk alone, at least for a while. And that kind of honesty feels like dying, because in many ways it is. It's the death of the old self, the one built to survive, not to live. But the price of avoidance is so much greater. A life unlived, a soul silenced, a heart that beats but never truly feels. You can spend your whole life managing appearances, checking boxes, numbing the ache, chasing something that was never yours to begin with, and still feel empty at the end. Because you didn't awaken, you just endured. You either live anesthetized or you awaken. There is no middle ground. And that's the choice that stands before you now, not a comfortable one, but a necessary one. Will you stay safe in the shadows of the known? Or will you step, trembling, unsure, into the light of your truth? Because on the other side of fear is you. If something inside you has stayed with these words, it means a part of you already knows you can't keep living this way. Not one more day inside a life that isn't yours. Not one more smile that hides your silence. Not one more step further from yourself. Carl Jung didn't offer comfort. He offered truth. And the truth is, you are not broken. You are simply being called to return to your soul, to your purpose, to the self you abandoned to survive. This journey won't be easy, but it will be honest, it will be real, and for the first time in a long time, it will be yours. So pause, listen, and begin. Not to become someone new, but to finally come home to who you've always been.